Okay, now it's time to try to install hardwood floor. We're going to do Supreme Bamboo floor from Lumber Liquidators. This is what this product looks like. This room is about a little less than 400 square feet. I got enough flooring to cover it and the underlayment for less than $800. We'll do an unboxing of the bamboo here. Made in China. I'm not sure how they make it. It is a solid wood product, but it might be somewhat processed. Comes in boxes like this, and each box is 23.81 square feet. They're all very uniform. The instructions at the website indicate that the wood is supposed to acclimate for about 5 days in a room that's between 60 and 78 degrees or something like that. I've had mine in a room for about 3 days at 50 degrees. So we'll see how it goes. You're also supposed to check the moisture content of the wood and compare it to the moisture content of your subfloor, and it's supposed to be within 4%. I don't have a moisture content measurer, so we're just going to go with it and see what happens. I'm going to throw out a disclaimer that I have to do on all my videos. It seems that I really don't know what I'm doing, so you should probably get professional advice. I'm probably screwing some out, but here's what I did. This first course, I nailed down with just a trim nailer with really long nails in it. I trimmed down the back side because that's going to get covered up by the molding anyways. And then for the first 2 courses, you have to get in there and put a nail carefully in the tongue. This is one thing that I did learn, is that the tongue sticks out and you put the nails or staples. I have a flooring nailer that my brother-in-law loaned me, except that you can put it on here, but you can't put it on the first course. The first row, you have to use this and just best you can nail down the tongue. And then after that, you're going to use your flooring nailer, which is pneumatic, and you hit it with this hammer. And what I was told was that you need to put these staples, let me show you, about every, there's 4 of them go in each one of these boards. And you can see here, if you've got the whole board, which goes from here to here, I have a staple here, staple here, a staple here, and a staple here. You don't want to get too close to the end or these tongues break off. And there's kind of a fine art to hitting that hammer, and I'll show you that in a second, because if you hit, it's kind of an analog device as opposed to either driving the staple or not. The harder you hit it, the further the staple goes in. And if you drive it in too far, you end up cracking the tongue like this, and it makes it tough to do the next course. One that might be, see, this one's kind of perfect here, and it just stopped, no cracking, it's right in the crack. That's kind of what I'm shooting for, and I'm just getting the hang of it right now. On this first course, obviously it's very critical that you get the first boards in square, straight, true, whatever, because that's going to set things for the rest of the room. Now, keep in mind, I've never done this before, but this is what I would surmise. And the problem I have is with my walls, they're not square. As a matter of fact, this one over here bows way in, so you can't just measure necessarily off a wall and call it good, because that wall is bowed in. What I did was I took measurements all along this wall, especially on this end and then way over on that end, and then I lined up my underlayment, which is just a tar paper, and there are lines on it, and I made sure that these lines are is measured out, and this line is square. You could also measure a right triangle off the wall and do it that way, but I'm pretty confident that this line in the tar paper is square. And then I've been very careful on this first course then to make sure that it's exactly the same distance from this line. You can line up, what I do is I've lined up 3 of them, and these push together pretty easy. And then I measure out here, and it's been taking a very long time to get this first line or first course down, and plus I've got air vents down here that I got to cut around. But I really want to make sure that that first course is dead on straight, so that as I build out, I'm going to be going out straight. So you got to remember that you got to leave room for expansion of these boards at the edge. So I took all the baseboards off. I guess they expand more widthwise than lengthwise for whatever reason. So I have about a 3/8 inch gap here, and then about a 1/2 inch gap along the wall here. Okay, I've done about 125 of these boards now, and I'm just taking a break maybe to share some thoughts that I have. Another thing I've noticed is that this house is very old. It was built in about 1880, and so the floor's not completely straight. And what's nice about these boards that are a little bit thinner, they're only like, I don't know, 5/8 of an inch thick, it makes it a lot easier to follow. I think there's a dip right in this area right here, and it hasn't been a problem. When I get to the end, you got to cut a spot here. There's a tongue here, so you're going to put the grooved end in here, but what you can do is flip it over and get your gap right, and then you're going to just make a mark where to cut it. And I'm going to cut that off right now. Okay, so I cut this off. Now, the trick with this is because I normally am pounding, I'll show you that in a second, pound on it this way so the seam is lined up straight. You can't do that because it's so close to the wall. So you really want to do your best job to push it over. So there's no way to really leverage it once it's in there, because if you try to, you could kind of stick a little pry bar in here and push a little bit that way, but the drywall isn't very strong here. So you just want to make sure this is as tight as possible. All right. And we're going to put a couple of staples in that. Okay, I've been trying to space these boards, the ends of the boards, in a more or less random pattern, and the easy way to do that is to take I cut off just that little section of that board over there and take what's left, and then you start over on this side with that section, and you're going to more or less get a real nice, almost completely random pattern. Okay, so the other trick that I've learned is take a piece of board about this long. This is a good size that you've cut off that has the groove on one end, and you're going to use that to pound these things in place. I use it this way as opposed to this way. I guess you could do it this way. You'd be pounding on the tongue, which is, you could cut off the tongue. I guess it'd be easy, but I just like to do it this way. That'll get it nice and tight. Of course, the nail gun will do that too, but I think it's important to get it tight first. And the other thing with this that I've discovered is that I think the trick is really making sure that you have it tight into the groove and properly seated before you hit it. That, I think, is the most important part. I noticed if I got it off a little bit, it just made it hard to line up the next one, and it also broke the tongue more easily. All right, I have cut out my notch, and I cut off the bottom here. Now, moment of truth, see if I can wedge it in here. Just slide it way over here. And
other door, back door.
Look at that.
Back door. Back door. Hey, knock it off. Back door.
Perfect. One other important thing to mention is that you want to take your boards, you don't want to take them all from one pack at a time because of variations in the color, or the finish, or whatever. You need to mix it up or you'll end up with patches of boards that look different than the rest. And so what you need to do is kind of shuffle these boards. What I've been doing is I took them all out of the package to dry, or to acclimate, and I sort of shuffled them up, and then I moved them over to another side of the room and I shuffled them up again. And every time I pick them off the pile, I try to pick them from random areas so that I'm really getting boards from all the different packs so that you end up with a variation. I'm going to show you, if you look over here, zoom in here, you can see how there's some of the boards are darker, like this one's darker. I mean, there was a pack where all of them were a bit darker, and you want to sort of scatter those randomly throughout the floor. Don't want to put a hole too close to the end or it splits the board. So, this is it. Last nails, and done. Done. So this had to have been probably one of the easiest rooms to do. It's a perfect rectangle. The only cutting and goofing around was like around these posts, around this stair tread, which isn't perfect, but once I put a little molding piece on there, it'll be fine. Surprisingly, there was very little, I don't know, I think they told me to expect 10% waste. So in this 400 square foot room, this little pile of boards was all the waste that I had, and a couple of those were just because I miscut them. This total room, while it wasn't that difficult to do, was a little physically demanding in that you're on your knees and bent over with a hammer all day. And it probably took me about 35 hours this weekend to do it. So if you want to do it yourself, you should build that time equation into your decision on whether to do it. It looks good, and I'm very happy I did it. Although, like I said, it took an awful long time. Well, good luck with your own project. Bye-bye.